The deal was almost done, Max Verstappen to Mercedes. But Toto Wolff said no. Why was it cancelled at the last moment? All the answers are coming. Don't miss a second. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. The pressure cloaking the Formula One paddock has taken on a weight that can't be measured by lap times or tire degradation. There's a storm beneath the surface, one not formed by weather systems but by political strain, strategic uncertainty, and a sense of instability rippling through the very core of Red Bull racing. It's no longer about defending a championship. It's about holding together a structure threatening to collapse under the weight of silence, mistrust, and chaos barely hidden behind corporate smiles. The absence of Christian Horner has left a void far more devastating than anyone inside the team publicly acknowledges. This isn't simply a missing name on a personnel list. It's the removal of the only force that once made Red Bull functional during crisis. Without him, the team feels disjointed, reactionary, unsure of itself. What used to be instinctive has become mechanical. Communication has grown rigid. Decision-making, once bold and centralized, now flows through diluted channels riddled with hesitation. Nobody seems to know who's making the final call. Technical staff rely on metrics they don't fully trust. The factory pushes updates that arrive late, fragmented, sometimes lacking correlation. And within this fog of disarray, Max Verstappen walks the line between indifference and quiet rebellion. His behavior has shifted, not overtly, but unmistakably. He delivers the media lines with the expected tone, but behind the curtain, he's becoming more remote. Not angry, just calculating. Detached. A driver not in decline, but in observation. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. This version of Verstappen doesn't look like someone desperate to win a title. He resembles a figure studying the cracks beneath his feet, assessing how deep they run. Every word he speaks feels filtered through caution, as if he's aware that anything unguarded could be weaponized internally. The once seamless connection between him and his engineers has started to fray. Not broken, but strained. The banter is gone. The camaraderie has dried up. There's no shouting, no confrontation, just a pervasive sense that something vital has faded. He's watching. He's listening. But he's no longer trusting. The appointment of Laurent Mekies as a transitional leader hasn't resolved anything. He isn't the voice the team respects. He isn't feared. He doesn't command the kind of unspoken authority that keeps factions in check. What he provides is presence, not direction. His leadership feels borrowed, temporary, like scaffolding holding up something that was never meant to stand without its original architect. There's no fire in his briefings, no imprint in his decisions. And the result is a team moving through the motions with neither urgency nor conviction. The technical package, once the envy of the grid, no longer guarantees superiority. Developments arrive with less confidence, simulations yield unpredictable outcomes, and what once felt like precision engineering has morphed into a guessing game. Even in dry conditions, the balance is elusive. On rain-affected weekends, the car becomes moody, fragile, inconsistent. Verstappen's feedback reflects the struggle, though increasingly laced with resignation. His telemetry shows he's still extracting more than the car deserves, but even that brilliance feels muted when the foundation is flawed. He doesn't voice panic. He doesn't need to. His restraint says everything. And then there's Tsunoda, whose presence in the second seat now feels like a ticking clock. Once labeled promising, now viewed internally as expendable. His emotional swings, radio volatility, and inconsistency no longer amuse. They frustrate. Engineers dread debriefs. Data analysts triple-check his inputs because reliability is no longer assumed. Replacing him isn't a matter of if, but when. Liam Lawson's name circulates quietly but persistently, his simulator sessions more detailed, his feedback more aligned with team goals. Tsunoda doesn't speak about the rumors. He doesn't have to. The tension around him is louder than any confirmation. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Other teams sense the fragility. They don't say it openly, but they've started to shift their posture. Mercedes has stopped reacting to Red Bull strategies. They're anticipating them. McLaren walks the paddock with sharpened intent, no longer impressed, now emboldened. Ferrari, even in their own dysfunction, recognize opportunity. The fear Red Bull once invoked has vanished. Rivals smell uncertainty, and in Formula One, that's blood in the water. The mental edge Red Bull carried for years is gone. No team fears a wounded animal. They chase it. Every weekend without resolution adds weight. Every session without dominance tightens the noose. Verstappen doesn't show panic, but he's not blind to the direction things are heading. He sees the erosion of structure. He knows a team can't survive when internal alignment becomes a facade. There's no power vacuum, there's power chaos. Marco's influence, once firm, is now selective. Advisors whisper. Departments pull in different directions. And Verstappen, at the center of this maelstrom, has begun to plan beyond the walls he once called home. Spa used to be his territory. It symbolized control, certainty, force. But that memory is rotting. Last year's defeat wasn't just a loss, it was a shift in narrative. Hamilton's comeback was surgical. Russell's execution was ice-cold. Red Bull didn't just lose a race, they lost the story. And now, Verstappen arrives at the same track with less momentum, fewer guarantees, and a growing awareness that history repeats when structure collapses. If this weekend breaks wrong again, it's not a racing setback, it's a structural indictment. The weather forecast is the least of Red Bull's concerns. The real storm is internal, layers of resentment, suppressed doubts, and the kind of disorientation that turns a powerhouse into an empty machine. No team remains elite through silence. No structure survives on past glory. Without unity, without belief, without someone capable of commanding with clarity, Red Bull won't fade. It will fracture. And Verstappen, already eyeing escape routes, won't stay to watch it happen. The atmosphere within the paddock has turned electric with unease, the kind that doesn't need confirmation to feel real. It buzzes through the motorhomes, it travels in hushed conversations by espresso bars, it clings to every sideways glance between rival team principals. One name continues to dominate this undercurrent of anxiety: Max Verstappen. And while the official narrative tries to maintain composure, beneath the surface, the situation grows more unstable with every passing day. Toto Wolff, the seasoned architect of Mercedes' empire, has attempted to downplay the possibility of Verstappen switching allegiances. Yet, the way he phrases his denials leaves enough oxygen in the rumor mill to keep the fire alive. His responses are cloaked in practiced diplomacy, phrases that appear definitive but are constructed with deliberate ambiguity. "We're focused on consistency," he says. No drastic reshuffles. In this sport, however, phrases like those are rarely meant to close the door. They're designed to leave it ajar, just enough to slip through when the timing is right. Mercedes continues to emphasize their supposed long-term structure, built around George Russell's growth and Kimi Antonelli's potential. Publicly, the messaging is tight, curated, rehearsed. But those watching closely can spot the inconsistencies, the strategic hedging, the quiet modifications, the off-record meetings that never make it into the press briefings. There's a difference between commitment and contingency, and what's unfolding at Brackley reeks of the latter. The truth lies buried in the details of Verstappen's agreement with Red Bull, an arrangement often hailed as airtight, but in reality, crafted with escape mechanisms that few outside the top legal teams understand. Performance clauses, statistical thresholds, championship standings, all laced with clauses meant to protect both parties, but under the right circumstances, offer just enough room for maneuvering. It's these conditions that have become the focus of intense speculation. One in particular: if Verstappen finishes the season below third in the driver's standings, a window may open, quietly, briefly, but legally. That clause may be hidden in layers of corporate legalese, but Red Bull's recent behavior has practically illuminated it in neon. The sudden urgency behind mid-season aerodynamic overhauls, the abrupt internal shuffling, the private discussions with major financial partners, the increased presence of Verstappen's management at races they normally skip. These aren't coincidences. They're preemptive reactions, signs of a team preparing for a possible rupture. And then there's Mercedes, silently adjusting the machine behind the curtain. They're not pursuing Verstappen openly. That would trigger headlines, destabilize negotiations, and risk inflaming an already sensitive situation. Instead, they operate with patience, coordination, subtlety. Meetings with intermediaries. Technical briefs rewritten with a different driving style in mind. Personnel adjustments that aren't labeled as replacements, but suddenly align with Verstappen's known preferences. They don't need to say it aloud. The message is clear: if Max becomes available, through clause, fallout, or frustration, they won't hesitate. Whether through a multi-million buyout or a well-timed escape route, they're positioning themselves to strike. And if they land him, it won't just be a recruitment. It will be an ambush. There's a growing belief among insiders that Mercedes' entire post-Hamilton restructuring has Verstappen at its core. They won't admit it, and they don't have to. From the overhaul of internal power dynamics to the silence surrounding Antonelli's actual track readiness, the plan is transparent to those paying attention. Everything suggests they're building towards something far more disruptive than simply replacing a veteran driver. This isn't a game of if, it's a matter of when. And Red Bull senses it. The team that once radiated dominance has begun to show subtle signs of unease. Horner's posture has changed. His interviews are tense, measured, less confident. Technical decisions that once looked bold now feel rushed. Strategic risks seem less calculated and more desperate. That confidence, so critical to Red Bull's internal psychology, has started to erode. Verstappen, too, seems different. He's still composed, still lethal behind the wheel, but the way he carries himself has shifted. His comments, though subtle, are edged with something colder, detachment, maybe even calculation. He's not lashing out, but he's also not defending the team with the same intensity. He knows what leverage feels like. And he's using it without needing to say a word. Every move now matters. Every mechanical update. Every public comment. Every closed-door meeting between team leaders and power brokers. And with each passing weekend, the tension builds. Because if Red Bull falters even slightly, if Verstappen finds himself out of the top 3 by Abu Dhabi, the exit path appears. And once that door opens, there's no guarantee he doesn't walk through it. In the background, Mercedes remains patient. Not passive, just deliberate. They're not chasing headlines. They're setting traps. And when the time is right, when Red Bull's grip loosens just enough, when the results falter just slightly, they'll strike. Not with noise, but with precision. Because what's unfolding is not a negotiation. It's a quiet siege. And when the dust settles, it won't be about a driver changing teams. It will be about a power shift, one that redefines the balance of influence in the sport. One that turns whispers into weapons. Behind Ferrari's polished surface and ceremonial calm, a more unsettling reality quietly festers. While there's no visible meltdown or dramatic fallout, the situation is far from stable. It's not loud, but it's fragile. Beneath the glossy veneer of sponsorship commitments, corporate statements, and carefully choreographed paddock appearances, the internal structure is vibrating with pressure. Not explosive, but relentless. The kind that doesn't scream, it corrodes. Fred Vasseur's position has not been dismissed outright, but it's far from unchallenged. After the fallout in Canada, critical conversations began to stir, not publicly, not even formally, but behind thick wooden doors in Maranello's most secure offices. John Elkann, with his calculated corporate demeanor, and Benedetto Vigna, ever fixated on long-term viability and brand legacy, weren't pleased. Discontent didn't arrive like a storm, it leaked in like a slow gas, invisible but toxic. There was no official condemnation, but the message was unmistakable. The current direction wasn't enough. And yet for now, Vasseur remains where he is. Not because of sudden success or undeniable momentum, but due to two voices that carry more weight than any boardroom whisper, those of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Both, in their own deliberate ways, made their stance known. Hamilton, never one to speak carelessly, voiced quiet but firm support, praising Vasseur's openness, the structure he's attempted to instill, and the relative calm he provides amidst the turbulence. Leclerc, more restrained but equally intentional, backed the leadership in measured terms. Their unified front didn't remove the doubts, but it silenced them for now. It bought time. But in Formula One, time is never given. It's borrowed. And the interest is brutal. The shadow of potential alternatives hasn't disappeared. Christian Horner, recently engulfed in his own organizational firestorm, remains a topic not openly addressed but never completely dismissed within Ferrari's inner circle. There are no active discussions, no meetings scheduled, but the possibility lingers. Quietly, persistently. If Ferrari falters with their next-generation package, if internal evolution proves insufficient, and if Hamilton begins to question the trajectory, the unthinkable might suddenly become essential. A dramatic power shift at Maranello is not inconceivable. All it takes is one more season without substance. On the technical side, things are more delicate than dramatic. Ferrari's effort to claw back competitiveness hasn't arrived through revolutionary leaps, but through a slow, calculated stream of mechanical alterations and aerodynamic fine-tuning. The introduction of the revamped rear suspension system isn't just a design choice, it's a necessity. The SF25 had persistent inconsistencies, troublesome tendencies under braking, instability during sudden weight transfer, and unpredictable reactions in high-speed cornering. The goal is to reduce the unpredictability. Stabilize the platform. Create something that behaves under pressure. Engineers claim the lower ride height combined with adjusted load vectors will reduce understeer and help contain the violent rear-end over-rotation that's plagued them on certain layouts. But like every intervention in a modern Formula One machine, the change doesn't exist in a vacuum. Adjust one variable, and another system shifts. Tweak rear geometry, and brake balance has to be re-optimized. Alter load transfer, and tire thermal behavior changes. Push the chassis toward stability, and you risk losing responsiveness. It's a never-ending equation of compromises, and Ferrari's margin for error is paper-thin. They're not solving problems, they're trading them. Rear tire degradation remains a vulnerability, especially in changeable weather or high-wear circuits. Brake cooling efficiency is being re-evaluated. Lift and coast strategies are being modified to accommodate new energy profiles. The update package is not a solution, it's a recalibration. A bandage, not a cure. Inside the factory, the tempo is aggressive, but tense. Nobody is panicking, but nobody's relaxed. The team operates with the quiet intensity of professionals who understand just how close they are to being overtaken, not only on track but within their own internal hierarchy. Departmental walls are growing thinner. Interpersonal friction is rising. Strategy briefings are longer. Technical reviews are more exhaustive. There is no room for assumptions, no tolerance for oversights. Every single person working on the car knows that anything less than perfect isn't enough. Hamilton, for all his outward serenity, is becoming less patient. His social media is more neutral. His interviews, more cautious. The enthusiasm of his Ferrari unveiling has slowly given way to professional restraint. He's watching the numbers. Watching the telemetry. Watching the people. Every missed opportunity is noted. Every race without podium contention is remembered. He may not say it, but he's measuring everything. And if the vision he bought into begins to fade, he won't hesitate to rethink everything. Leclerc, more emotionally connected to the team, hides it better, but he isn't blind. He's been promised many things before. He's seen reorganizations. He's lived through false dawns. He understands how quickly hope can rot into regret. Behind his smile lies experience, and he's quietly asking himself whether the next 2 seasons will be about growth or just survival in a stagnating project. Ferrari, for now, continues. The upgrades keep arriving. The processes remain in motion. There's no open conflict. No mutiny. No scandal. But there is weight. Every meeting, every simulation, every debrief carries a pressure that doesn't come from expectation alone, but from the knowledge that they're running out of road. The world isn't waiting. The grid is advancing. And if they hesitate again, the silence from their own garage will say more than any podium ever could. Away from the spotlight of the frontrunners, Aston Martin operates in a fog of ambiguity, neither fully relevant nor entirely out of the conversation. Their silence is strategic, deliberate, and unnerving. They've hinted at a significant addition this weekend, but refuse to identify what part of the machine is being overhauled. Engineers walk past reporters with blank stares, mechanics speak in riddles, and even the PR handlers avoid eye contact when asked. The paddock is left speculating wildly. Some believe the team has reinvented their floor structure. Others suspect a concealed aerodynamic solution has been fitted behind closed doors. There's even unconfirmed talk of a modified rear suspension designed to stabilize the erratic rear-end behavior that's plagued them all year. Nobody knows for sure. And that's the point. They're keeping everyone guessing because the truth might not live up to the build-up. Lance Stroll finds himself in yet another uncomfortable position, driving on territory that holds personal meaning, but under circumstances that offer no room for sentiment. The spotlight on him is flickering, not because people are watching closely, but because fewer even care anymore. His performances have become difficult to defend, his inconsistencies harder to mask. The weather forecast at Spa is unstable, which might play into his hands, or bury him further. He needs the chaos. He needs the unpredictability. Because when things run normally, he disappears into the midfield like vapor. This isn't just another Grand Prix. It feels like a slow reckoning that only he doesn't acknowledge. Time is closing in, and the paddock's patience with his storyline is wearing dangerously thin. Inside the team, there's little illusion left. The upgrade push doesn't feel like a tactical advance. It feels like a gamble from a unit desperate for validation. Their early season development plan was a misfire, and the consequences continue to bleed into every weekend. The decision to invest further in this year's concept reeks of internal conflict. Half of the team wants to pivot to next season, while the other half clings to the hope that one well-timed component might salvage credibility. The infighting isn't loud, but it's growing. People are quietly picking sides. Technical leaders no longer speak with unified conviction. Every new part added to the car feels like a political compromise rather than a decisive evolution. Over at Red Bull, the operation is moving with quiet urgency. The RB21 is not being abandoned, not yet. Despite all public emphasis on the 2025 project, the current car is still being squeezed for gains, not because they believe it can restore total dominance, but because they can't afford the alternative. A new front wing is set to appear this weekend, but its significance goes beyond numbers or downforce. It's symbolic. It's an offering meant for one person: Verstappen. He's not voicing his discontent, but the silence speaks louder. Those closest to him say his frustration isn't emotional, it's analytical. He sees the patterns. He understands the limitations. He's watched the margins evaporate, the advantage dwindle, the pit wall grow indecisive. He knows when a car is slipping from supremacy into stagnation. And while he continues to deliver, his eyes are already scanning the horizon. Loyalty has its limits. He's not wired to wait around for internal corrections while rivals build faster weapons. The upcoming adjustment to the front end is being internally framed as a necessary step, but some believe it's an attempt to keep Max psychologically tethered. There's another update scheduled for Hungary, likely aimed at correcting some of the balance instability in medium-speed corners, areas where Ferrari and McLaren have already gained ground. The updates aren't just about lap time. They're bait. They're psychological tools designed to maintain proximity between Verstappen and a project he's beginning to mentally detach from. Internally, there's growing awareness that his belief in the direction of the team is faltering. The front office won't say it, but the engineers know. The strategists know. Horner knows. If Verstappen disengages, even subtly, the ripple effect could be catastrophic. His presence isn't just valuable on race day, it's the foundation of Red Bull's modern identity. If he begins to drift, others will follow. Sponsors become uneasy. Designers reconsider contracts. Young drivers start circling. And the myth of untouchable control that Red Bull has carefully built over the last few seasons begins to splinter. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't leak. But everything about his posture lately suggests calculation. He's preparing for options, not because he wants to leave, but because he might have to. The contract clause isn't window dressing, it's actionable leverage. If the results slip further, or if the internal missteps continue, no one will be surprised if he activates it. It wouldn't be emotional. It would be tactical. Cold. Necessary. The upgrades, then, are not just engineering milestones, they're acts of diplomacy. Designed not only to improve performance, but to project control. Red Bull is trying to keep up appearances in a structure that's slowly fraying at the edges. Verstappen is still committed, but it's transactional now. Each new part is a reason to stay, a placeholder to keep him engaged while the future is sorted behind closed doors. And while the public debates tire strategies and weather predictions, the real story is unfolding quietly in the corridors of power, a team struggling to retain the driver who built their dynasty, and a driver carefully assessing whether the empire he helped build is still worthy of his presence. A quiet storm is spiraling through the core of Formula One, hidden beneath carefully rehearsed interviews, vague press statements, and shallow reassurances. Yet anyone paying attention can see it for what it really is, a brewing crisis cloaked in official silence and strategic deflection. At the heart of this intensifying mess is a scandal the FIA is struggling to contain, one that calls into question the very legitimacy of competition at the highest level. Red Bull's control over two teams isn't just inconvenient optics anymore. It's a ticking time bomb, and everyone in the paddock can hear it. The situation is no longer theoretical. The dual ownership of Red Bull Racing and Visa Cash App RB presents an operational nightmare for any regulatory body serious about fairness. There's no illusion of separation anymore. Rival teams are not merely suspicious, they're furious. The idea that two outfits, sharing a corporate umbrella, can supposedly function independently in a sport driven by marginal gains is insulting to every competitor who fights tooth and nail without backup. While the FIA parades around vague claims of improved digital isolation, data segregation, and stricter procedural oversight, no one truly believes these promises have teeth. In a world where tenths of a second can win championships, information is currency. And in this scenario, Red Bull is printing its own money. Zak Brown, never known for subtlety, has led the charge against this setup with relentless energy. But he's not alone. Many team bosses, off the record, have voiced similar concerns. The fear isn't merely collusion, it's manipulation hiding in plain sight. When a lead driver like Verstappen finds himself storming through traffic and suddenly encounters a sister team car, the question is no longer hypothetical. Does the second car yield too easily? Does it defend as fiercely as it would against someone else? Are decisions made based on competitive instinct or corporate alignment? The answers don't need to be spoken. The optics alone are corrosive. Every clean overtake on a supposedly rival car owned by the same entity chips away at the idea of independent competition. The illusion of fair play becomes thinner with each race, and the sport risks descending into theater. It's not about hard evidence, it's about perception. And that perception is beginning to rot everything from the inside. Meanwhile, the FIA continues to posture, pushing out technical terms and digital solutions that sound impressive in press releases but lack practical enforcement. Firewalls and protocols mean little when personnel are recycled between garages, when philosophies align behind closed doors, and when both outfits ultimately answer to the same executive structure. The governing body is attempting to convince the public that they've installed safeguards, when in truth, they've lost control of the narrative. Power in Formula One doesn't sit in Paris. It sits in energy drink boardrooms and marketing departments. As this institutional failure unfolds, another story is accelerating with far more volatility, one that involves the sport's most powerful name making quiet moves under a thick fog of speculation. Max Verstappen's brief and unexplained detour to Sardinia wasn't a vacation, no matter how many smiles or sarcastic soundbites were thrown at reporters afterward. 5 hours on an island during a critical phase of the season doesn't resemble rest, it signals negotiation. Everything about that stop was calculated: the timing, the secrecy, the chosen location. He wasn't sightseeing. He was positioning. Toto Wolff laughed off the rumors with ease, playing his role to perfection, but the smile didn't hide the tension. Mercedes has a gaping hole at the center of its future, and Verstappen, tired of internal noise, technical misalignment, and political games within Red Bull, is now rumored to be open to a seismic shift. The private plane trackers, the social media storm, the cryptic denials, all of it feeds a truth too large to ignore. Conversations have started. What remains is confirmation. This isn't about a simple transfer. If Verstappen defects, it detonates Red Bull's structure. Their dominance will fracture. Their image as an unbeatable machine will dissolve into chaos. It would strip them of not just their golden weapon, but their entire sense of control. And it would prove that no amount of victories can suppress internal decay forever. No championship is enough to silence growing distrust, ego clashes, or the sense of being trapped in a system that's begun to rot from within. The timing couldn't be worse for Red Bull. They're already fending off questions about favoritism, data integrity, and the ethics of their sporting model. Verstappen leaving wouldn't just be an earthquake, it would be a full-blown collapse. Sponsors would panic. Technical staff would reassess loyalties. The illusion of stability would shatter. And in the center of it all, the FIA would be exposed for what it's become: a bystander, incapable of reigning in the empire it helped empower. Every move Verstappen makes now is analyzed frame by frame. Every gesture is a signal. Every quote, every silence, every smirk is dissected by a sport that senses something is about to crack wide open. This isn't a rumor anymore. It's a countdown. And when the truth is finally dragged into the light, it won't come gently, it'll come like a hammer. The moment it lands, it won't just impact contracts. It will upend the foundation of the modern Formula One landscape. Right now, the Formula One world isn't merely divided, it's completely fractured. The fan base is tearing itself apart over one thing: the latest round of driver rankings that dropped like a bomb in the middle of an already volatile season. And at the center of this firestorm? None other than Tomo, the unapologetically provocative YouTuber who's once again managed to set the community ablaze. His mid-season rankings weren't just controversial, they were outright incendiary. Fans didn't just disagree, they revolted. Nico Hülkenberg landing in the third position? That alone was enough to send social media into an absolute frenzy. People demanded explanations, pointed to race results, lap times, and tire strategy to dismantle the choice. Hülkenberg's ranking was seen as a slap in the face to drivers who've actually fought through the midfield, secured top 6 finishes, and taken massive risks under pressure. And then there's Lance Stroll, positioned dead last, as if none of his resilience, sacrifices, or point-scoring performances had any value. It was as if he was erased from the narrative altogether. But what truly pushed the community into uproar was the placement of Alex Albon above both Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. That decision was viewed by many as delusional at best, and an intentional attempt to provoke engagement at worst. Yes, Albon has wrung every drop of performance out of an underwhelming car. But better than both Ferrari drivers, who've consistently fought near the front in one of the most demanding cars on the grid. That's not just a bold take, that's a lightning rod for backlash. And Tomo knew it. Of course, Tomo's own audience tried to offer their version of the truth through a community poll, and the difference between that and his personal ranking list only widened the gap between creator and crowd. Oscar Piastri, somehow ranked number 1 in his version, didn't even come close in the public vote. Most fans pointed toward Max Verstappen's sustained dominance and George Russell's unshakable consistency as far more deserving of top honors. And while Piastri is undeniably talented, his season has been a roller coaster of highs and anonymous finishes. Crown him number 1? That felt like a fantasy. Then there's the Lewis Hamilton dilemma. Placed too low in both rankings, he's once again been shoved into the background despite being within spitting distance of drivers in faster, more stable machinery. He's surviving a turbulent development phase, adapting to ever-changing car behavior, and yet he remains in mathematical contention. How can someone with his track record and current point total be pushed so far down the ladder without it reeking of agenda or ignorance? It's not just unfair, it's insulting. Across Reddit, Twitter, Discord, and comment sections, the outrage has become uncontainable. Nobody's holding back. Fans are dissecting telemetry, comparing pit strategies, and dragging every race weekend back into the spotlight just to prove how flawed, manipulative, and blatantly reckless these rankings are. It's no longer a debate, it's a battleground of reputation, bias, and raw emotion. And whether they'll admit it or not, the drivers see it. These rankings reach them. They hear the noise. They carry that weight into every qualifying session, every defensive maneuver, every post-race interview. The damage done by these lists isn't just virtual, it's psychological. And as if that chaos wasn't enough, Spa's unpredictable weather is here to pour even more gasoline on the fire. Rain isn't just a possibility, it's practically guaranteed. Light showers, sudden downpours, temperature drops, every corner of the circuit could be in a different season at the same time. Teams are scrambling. Engineers are rewriting setups by the hour. Data from FP1 might be completely useless by FP3. And when it comes to sprint qualifying, a mistimed tire call could sabotage an entire weekend. Spa has always been a monster. One lap can erase everything. But when it's soaked in rain and chaos, it becomes something even more sinister. The kind of track that exposes weaknesses teams didn't even know they had. Verstappen may dominate in the dry, but can Red Bull handle the unpredictability? Hamilton thrives in these conditions. He's built entire careers on chaos management. Russell could sneak in and blow the whole weekend open. And if Ferrari doesn't nail their calls, they might be the ones losing everything they've clawed back this year. The pressure isn't theoretical, it's crushing. For drivers, engineers, team bosses, and strategists alike, this weekend has the power to define the second half of the season. One misstep, one pit stop too late, one lap on the wrong compound, and the whole race weekend crumbles. Everyone is watching the skies, but the real storm is already here. Tension, resentment, and unanswered questions. Will Tomo's rankings age like fine wine or be buried in the dirt by actual results? Will the weather play kingmaker or executioner? Tell me what you think. Who deserves the top spot? Has Lewis been wronged again? Will Spa flip the script or reinforce the status quo? Drop your wildest takes, your harshest critiques, your boldest predictions in the comments. And if you're hungry for more brutally honest, no-spin coverage of the madness behind the scenes in Formula One, hit that like button and subscribe. Because the truth doesn't live in press releases, it lives right here in the chaos, where the stories actually happen.